And welcome. What's happening, folks? How you doing? Thanks for being here a little earlier than usual today. I have to stop by about 12:40, so that's why I'm gonna go and see Mr. Paul McCartney in Oakland this evening. So I'm gonna head up there, and that should be fun. I guess he played on Friday. Tonight's the second Oakland gig. And there's a gig in LA that I was going to try and attend that's on this coming Friday, but I'm playing that night. So I'll tell you about this gig if you guys want to come that I'm playing at on Friday that prevented me from seeing Paul McCartney in LA. It's a fellow named Paulie Z that does the jam night on Tuesdays at the Whiskey, and he wanted to do an all Chris Cornell themed night. And my friend Toshi Inagi is the other guitar player. He's the guitar player in the Jimmy Kimmel Show. So you've probably seen him. He's been doing it for 19 years. Amazing. 19 years. 19 years. That's job security. Wow. So there you have it. Yeah, so we're going to do Soundgarden, Audio Slave, all kinds of stuff. And this will be the first time I've ever played some of that music since Chris passed away. And so I kind of had mixed feelings about it and stuff. But then we went and jammed the other night, and I had a really good time. It's amazing how fast these things come back onto your fingers. I was like, God, I don't remember that song at all. And then it's like your hand just kind of goes there. It's like, oh, yeah. But anyway, that's next Friday night at the Federal in North Hollywood, California, if you guys would like to go. Anybody in the area? Friday night at the Federal. And yeah, it should be fun. Why not now? What else we got here? Toshi is being interviewed on the Fruitcake Tony channel this Wednesday. That's interesting. Toshi's a great guitar player. Great sound, super pro, really nice guy. Just excellent. So would you ever do a Taylor Hawkins tribute show? I mean, I would play if somebody asked me to play. I would be honored. I would go play. I didn't know Taylor real well. I mean, I knew him to say hello, and I met him like a handful of times, on Foo Fighters gigs and stuff that we were both on. But he was really nice every time. The one time in particular that I really remember was in Japan at Summer Sonic. I had been invited by, I know their keyboard player a little bit better, so he had invited me and my friend Dennis to the show. So we went, and then we had a great night and all hung out. So I probably told that story before, but Taylor was really sweet that night. We had a good, sort of decent talk, long talk about Chris and Chris passing away and stuff, because it wasn't that long after that show happened. And so, anyways, I would be honored to. It's sad these guys are not with us anymore, but here's to them. What kind of coffee am I having? Says Trolls to Jimmy. What kind of coffee am I having? I am having, what is this? Oh, yeah, it's actually kind of fancy. There's a place in Pasadena, a nice new coffee shop called The Boy and the Bear. And I believe it's all Colombian coffee but it's, it's a super, like, they've got these beautiful steampunk looking espresso machines. And I sound like I'm drunk. I'm not, I swear. And anyways, I bought some beans there the other day and brought some of them here. So it's kind of fancy and delicious. Somebody just left me a really big super chat. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. I'm gonna check that out in just a second here. Oakland tonight. Don't you need to leave? I'm going this afternoon. It's an hour flight. It's short. Not driving. If I drove, I would have to leave now. And Ben Coombs would like to say that he's having his sister as a guest tonight for Mother's Day. So check out Ben's show tonight. Always on Sunday evenings. Oh, is it always Sunday evenings, Ben, or is it sometimes Mondays? It's always Sunday, right? Anyways, thanks so much, Jeff, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. A new receptionist found out I play guitar and asked if I knew Mitch Malloy. I said I do only because a guy I watch on YouTube every Sunday played a gig with him. She used to sell something he reps and is still in touch with him. Thanks for all you do. Thanks, man. Thanks for your super chat. I really appreciate that. Some coffee. I'm out of beans, so I just dumped the rest of the beans in the machine. Time to buy more beans. You showed up to fuel me to do this thing. So what happened this week? I did a video on the Randy Rhoads guitar. Did you guys like it? I had such a good time doing that. It was really great. Now, it's kind of funny because I did the video. I got the sound that I got in the video, which I was really happy with, using this Waza Super Overdrive right here into my SL68. After I did it, the next day, I found a Guitar World article from November 2021, really recent article. And they listed in it, because I did a little looking, some Googling, and they listed Randy's supposed amp and pedal settings. Well, I tried those, and that sounded really good too. It sounded a little even closer to him, I think. But I like the sound that I got, and so I'm happy with it. And the fact that, I used this and kind of, used the Altec IRs and all that in the video for the Randy guitar. I got close, but it's also veering a little bit more in the direction of, it's like a cross of what he would have done and what I like. So, but yeah, using the distortion plus with the distortion kind of low was the key. Output crank, but distortion on 4, and running the amp a little lower and cleaner, like on 6. So I was running the amp on 8 or 9 and hitting it with 8 really, and hitting it a little bit with the Super Overdrive. He was running the amp on 6 and running it with maybe the more distortion plus with the distortion on 4. Anyways, and it sounds really weird kind of at that point, but then when I added the MXR 10 band EQ with the settings that Guitar World listed in this November 2021 article, the exact settings, it was like, there it is. It fills in. The distortion plus on its own had this kind of hollow sound and was kind of strange, but with the 10 band after it, boosting the mids, low mids through the mids kind of, it then filled right in, and then it was like, oh yeah, that does really get close. So check out that article if you haven't, if you're a Randy nut and that sort of thing. And yeah, that's that. So it was a fun video to make, and really an honor to play that guitar, and really enjoyed it. So a couple more super chats there. I will grab those right now. Just after do you still have the JTM1? I do. That's my little baby Marshall. Do you still use it? Not often, but it's cool. I love it. I should just hook it up at home, actually, with a little cabinet beside the couch, because it would be a fun little home rig. That's what I used to have it in my old place. I've got it here right now, but I don't use it here. So I should take it home and utilize it, put it to good use. Okay, getting into those super chats in just a sec here, but there was another question I wanted to grab here, and now I've lost it. This happens. Where is it? This is an interesting question from Nathan. Do you have any question, or sorry, do you have any advice on band shyness, sharing ideas? Like, you're shy to share your ideas? If it's the right band, they'll be welcome to hear your ideas and open to hearing your ideas. That's what I think. And if they're like, that's dumb, dude, or I'm the writer in the band, not you, then maybe you're on the right band. That's what I think. So it's a relationship like any other, and it should be something where you're like, hey, I'm kind of shy to show you guys my ideas, and they're like, come on, dude, show us. Let's write. I don't know. That's what I think. I think it should be a good relationship where people, I mean, even in the Beatles documentary and the Get Back documentary, it was almost like a thing every day where they came in and they showed their songs, even though you can tell that George is a little frustrated maybe in that, but they're still encouraging him, I think, to, like, every day it was like show and tell. Well, here's my 2 ideas for the day, that I came up with. It was like even through all the probably some dysfunction, and it's for all the dysfunction and kind of like acrimony and stuff that people talk about when it comes to the Beatles, they sure seemed functional in that documentary, like hardworking, but having a great time, obviously enjoying each other's company. And when they did have a, not even an argument, because it seemed like what was, what we might oh, they were arguing. It's like, no, they're just discussing things and like really respectfully almost saying, like you're overbearing or whatever, like, I don't want to be, I don't want to, I don't want you to feel that way, that kind of stuff. It was a really great look into how cordial they all were with one another, even though the press blew up the disputes and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's the way bands should be, I think. So, talk to them about it. Be like, hey, I'm kind of, I don't know, I want to show you guys these ideas, but I'm a little shy about it or whatever. Be like, come on, I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful. Just finished the RR3 video, Crazy Solo Tone. You nailed it. Nicely done. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I had so much fun and learning the solos and stuff. I mean, I should do more of that. Just continue on the path that I was on when I was a little kid, like learning more. I have to anyway. I mean, even just going back and relearning a bunch of songs for this gig I have next Friday, that was great. And and realizing that maybe I was like, oh, even back when I used to play it 10 or 12 years ago or whatever, I kind of did this part wrong. Like it's actually like this, and there's always more to learn. Super chat from Eric. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. What amp would you say are closest to the Mick Mars Jose? Well, you would want to get a Jose of some variety. So your choices are sort of limited. I would say that I mean, I think Fortin does some stuff. You could probably get, you could probably get pretty close with a lot of things. I mean, a PT or a Friedman, maybe like a Friedman Jerry Cantrell or something, or yeah, or maybe with the BE with his custom 45 mod on. I'm just thinking, what else? Because a lot of amps, I mean, like when we take something like a Friedman amp, you've got a kind of a plexi architecture with some changes, and then you've got Dave adding a gain boost in front of the plexi, and that's the BE sound, and yet another gain stage is the HBE. Well, the BE is enough to get you to the McMars thing, and it's not really that dissimilar to the Jose sound. It's a sort of tuned version of a very similar thing. It's a gain boost in front of a plexi, So it's a PT in a way. So you can get close with a lot of these things. Oh, another amp just came to mind. The Seriatone. I think it's called the Yeti, or maybe it's the Chupacabra. I can't remember, but one of the Seriatones you can get for quite inexpensive, I think. And those, especially if you can find a used one, are kind of a Jose sort of kitchen sink, sort of amp. So you could get it. But I will say one thing about that particular Jose was it sounded different than even the other ones, and even my Germino, and there was something about it. And Richard said, it's just got this punch like in the upper mids, and it really did have this like certain sound to it. And an amp is like a sum of the parts and the tubes and the transformers and the exact circuit, the components, and you can get really close with the exact same amp like duplicated, and sometimes it's still not, like there's like an intangible. What is it? I don't know. It could be anything. So what speakers did you use? I think I was just using my old Marshall cab in the other room in the Mick Mars video. Sure sounded good, right? That amp. It was really good sounding, I must say. Really unique and just a great pissed off kind of big sound, Not really Eddie, and like I was saying in that video, I mean, when I was playing like the Steve Jones guitar part, the Sex Pistols, it was like, God, it sounds good for stuff like that. Just raw. It was raw. Aaron Christie with a super chat. Thanks, I appreciate that. Loving the BT100 UAD plugin. Would you and Sir ever consider doing an OD pedal that would give that drive channel tone through a clean amp, similar to what Friedman did with the BE OD? Yeah, which works really well. I don't think you're too far off with a Sir Riot, to be honest. You could probably dial in the Riot to be really quite like the Riot Mini, especially, I really like, and it's so small. It's such a great distortion pedal. I did a video for it if you want to go back and check it out. I mean, that's kind of John's, you could consider the Riot or the Riot Mini John's BEOD, I guess. It's not really that far off from his my amp. I mean, it's tuned in a little bit, but it's not really that different from Sir's, classic. Like he always tells me when he goes back and he looks at schematics, he goes, "It's not really that. It's really close to like my original Crunch mod or whatever, that he would do back in the day." So, anyways, I would try a Sir Riot Mini. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a better sounding, sort of all over, like big broad spectrum sort of distortion pedal. It's a really great sounding distortion box. And the mini version, I think I like even more than the big one. I don't know why. I just remember really digging it when I did the video of it. So, yeah. And check out that one, the Riot Mini. You're playing on the Randy video was amazing. Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. Thanks for being here. And and this was a total, I swear to God, coincidence. Anyone watch the Randy Rhoads show on Apple Plus? There's a new documentary about Randy that came out the same day that I put out that video. That's weird. A lot of weird things are happening lately, man, over the last few days. Like weird, serendipitous, very strange stuff going on. But yeah, I don't know. Something's in the air. But anyways, Ron says, love the Randy video. Great playing. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Is Mitch still playing with Gray White? Yeah, I believe so. I think that's his main gig. Let's see. I want a thin line acoustic or nylon guitar. For nylon, I love the Godin. I have one of those. It's terrific. Hard to beat for a nylon electric. That's thin line. And I'm really enjoying the Fender, they've got like, it's sort of a love-hate thing, I guess, but the my Acoustasonic Strat, which I'm going to use on at least one. I have two of them. I have the Jazzmaster and the Strat. I think I'm going to use the Strat for playing a song next Friday at the Federal. I took it the other day. I put it's so, those guitars are such good tools. That's the thing. The Acoustasonics, they're like, some people look at them and, I don't know, like, it's weird or it's, but man, what a tool with the electric sounds in it. And then also just the Strat neck, and it's small and you can throw it in a gig bag. Like, one thing about this gig is you need a lot of guitars. And so the other day, like when I was going, I was like, like acoustic guitar cases are just not fitting in this picture right now, because I need to bring like 6 guitars, and I probably need 7 at the gig if I need it truly with a backup. There's so many guitars because of the tunings. So, Acoustasonic, it's small, you just less stuff to bring. So I don't have a tech, so not for this. And they just sound good and they don't feed back. It's like so many things about it, I plugged it in, sound great. So have you been told you look like Michael Fitzpatrick from Fitz and the Tantrums? No, but I know somebody else from Fitz and the Tantrums. Who was it? The bass player I know in that band. So that's interesting. But no, I haven't been told that. I think I just look like my dad the older I get. John says you sounded particularly good in the Randy vid. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was really fun. I had a great time doing it. So, when you're doing what you love, you tend to sound like you're having a good time, I guess. Love catching the most excellent show all the way from Glasgow. That almost rhymes. Glasgow. I never know exactly how to say that. Glasgow. No, sorry. I love watching the most excellent show all the way from Glasgow. Sorry. Okay, what else we got here? Noise Monkey says that they had the UK Guitar Show in Birmingham. That's cool. Managed to catch up with Chris Buck and Danish Pete. Cool. And Bernie Martin did a nice set. That's cool. I'd like to see Bernie Martin play a set on his own. That'd be neat. And Chris Buck, great guy, great player. Pete, great guy, great player. All these great guys, great players. It's just like, geez, there's too many. No, You can never have enough. Do you have a preference on miking a cab versus going DI in a live setting? Well, these days I like to have a cab on stage, but I prefer to use a impulse response to front of house and for the monitors. And the reason is the consistency and just being able to dial it in ahead of time, and it's the same every day. I really don't think a mic gives you, I mean, I know a mic doesn't really give you, especially not in a live setting mixed with a band, doesn't give you anything more than what an impulse response can give you. It just doesn't. It's when you make your own impulse responses, as I have many times now, both on my own and with different companies like Two Notes and something else that I almost mentioned that I'm not going to mention because I'm not supposed to talk about it yet. But yeah, when you make your own IRs and then you get to directly AB the IR with the amp through the cabinet that you just made the IR of, you can go back and forth. Here's the IR, here's the mics. You're like, okay, that for all intents and purposes is the same damn sound. If it's not the same, it's so close that once the drums kick in and the drummer's hitting the crash cymbal, crash ride, drummers and their crashes, nobody's going to know the difference, So, and you can dial it in, like how are you going to get that degree of complexity? Like, oh, I want a 57 in exactly this position, maybe with a little bit of EQ. And now I want to add a 121, bring it in, but 6 dB under the 57, and let's move it a little, and dump a little lows, and we can move the mic back a little bit, so there's not so much proximity effect, but with no out of phase stuff going on because it's IR world and they've got that all figured out. You can't get that level of sophistication and precision with a mic live. You just can't. Recently, somebody asked me that's been using IRs about going to a ISO cab in a box sealed. Like, do you know any companies that make ISO boxes sealed that we can put a cabinet in and mic? And I'm like, aren't you using impulse responses? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, don't do it. Like, why? You're just not, maybe there's something else wrong, is what I advise. Don't go down the road of thinking that you're going to be happy with the cabinet in a box sealed, and that's going to sound better than what you can get out of an IR, because that ship has sailed, in my opinion. And I wholeheartedly, strongly believe that. Many times I think when people are what they're trying to do, they're like not happy with the sound in the in-ears, right? Or something, and they're like, oh, maybe if we put a cab in a box and mic it, then I'll be happy. It's the sound in your in-ears. It's your in-ears. Or it's the fact that you don't have a cabinet on stage and you can't feel it and you're trying to compensate in some way that you're never going to get to. I obviously feel really strongly about this. You're just never going to get there. You're never going to make it feel like you want it to feel in your in-ears through trying all these different things. If you can sit, it doesn't make sense, right? If you can go into a recording studio with your amp and a great cabinet that you love, and you can mic it up and spend all the time in the world trying to get the perfect sound through the monitors, and you'll get there a sound that's like, okay, that is a great guitar tone. Now you can make an impulse response to that, and you'll have that cabinet sound always. Now, if you get out on stage and you're like, something's missing, it doesn't sound good in my in-ears. Well, you already heard it through a flat, you dialed it in, there it is. So the problem is something else. It's not the, don't start changing cabinets and putting cabinets in boxes and throwing mics on them stuff. It's just, you're not going to get there. My thing is you probably need a cabinet on stage and it'll solve all your problems. You need to feel it a little bit. It doesn't have to be loud. It can be 10 watts loud. Just a little bit. Cabinets, pushing air. Dave Navarro said it really eloquently and he summed up my feelings exactly on it on Tone Talk when he was on. He said, my experience of playing guitar, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he said, my experience is that I need to hear it from back there. I need to hear it from down here, coming up like this. I need to hear it from out there, going like that. He needs to be enveloped with the guitar sound where he can hear it all in all those different ways. That's exactly the way I feel, And if you cut me off from that and just put it right here, I still can work, but it's not the same experience. And that's what you can just never get. You just can't get that physical experience without the, shall we say, inconvenience of a little bit of volume cabinets, pushing air, reacting with the stage, all that good stuff. So, uh, any advice you could share regarding speaker IRs? I always find them to feel stiff and sound harsh. Well, feel stiff. I mean, as opposed to a cabinet, like that's interesting. It once again, if you mic a cabinet and make an IR of it, this might be a good thing for some of you guys to investigate and try for your own research, just so you know. Like, do you really feel that if you've got a cabinet coming through studio monitors, it's isolated in another room, does that sound different than if you make an IR of that and then play through it? It really shouldn't feel different. It should sound basically the same. So as far as sounding harsh goes, it's just a matter of picking the IR where you might like own hammers. They tend to be a little darker and fuller sounding, you know. Um try some of theirs. You might like the darkest position from Celestion, Dark 2 in the Celestion IRs. Try that. It's really actually, I find, not that dark. I mean, it's maybe with the mic out into the paper, that far out into the paper from the center. They don't go crazy. Like, it's not the mic all the way out to the edge. So try the Dark 2 Celestions. Try a warmer microphone. Probably if you find they sound harsh, don't use a 57. Maybe I would say use a condenser, or a 121. But the only thing about Royer 121s or ribbon mic IRs, they can sound really nice, especially for cleans and mellow stuff, but they don't have the punch and the fast articulation or something of a dynamic. A condenser is the most, to me, sort of natural sounding overall. So if you can use something like a 4050, that's a mic I love on guitar cabinets, or something similar, a U47 FET, something like that. They just have this big overall picture that sounds very natural to me, and they still have like really clear top end, and they're articulate. A ribbon mic can be a little inarticulate. They sound warm, but a little bit not. They don't have the articulation quite. But when we think of the guitar sounds of like AC/DC, let's say from Back in Black, I mean, supposedly those were like, U87s or U67s, I think, on the cabinets. Just a natural full sound, that's not bright, really, when you listen to those Back in Black guitar tones. They're got a warmth. They're clear, but there's a warmth. They don't sound like 57s. It's a different sound. It's a really cool sound. I'd like to see more people actually use large diaphragm condensers on modern guitar. I think a lot of metal guys do, which is good because it's good for those types of, real full. You don't want the sound. You can use a lot of distortion and aggressive kind of amp tone, maybe a 57. I mean, a 57 is really cool, but it is a sound that I tire of it a little bit. I mean, after all these years, it's a classic sound and you kind of need it sometimes. It just has to be there, but it's like, I also do tire of it at times. So anyways, okay, I'm way back in the chat, you guys, so I'm going to move down here, and let's see. JG's talking about the possibility of a Van Halen reunion tour. I don't know anything about anything, but would you ever consider to be a part of it? I think it would be really nice if they did a show at some point. I don't know about a tour. What about just a show like they did for Chris? Because a tour, it's like, with a show, you could get a bunch of bands and come out and, but a tour, it's like, okay, you can't get everybody to commit to a schedule of like, so, anyways, I've heard about ideas about like, not even Van Halen being, but like other people thinking about doing tours. I've heard of a few things of kind of a themed, thing where, but we'll see if any of that transpires. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? How do I scare up a Pete Thorn custom guitar pick? I leave them everywhere all the time. I'm always throwing them all over the place. So if you happen to walk where I just was, there'll probably be one lying there. They tend to, they're certainly in my dryer, and like where the lint collector, you can find one there. But please don't come over. I have a theory that Van Halen's 5150 sounded different than the DLR albums because he used KT-77s in the same Marshall. Oh, I think the sound has so much modulation that it becomes hard to tell, to be honest, by that point. Plus, yeah, right, he was using the Kramer. A lot of things changed, I think it's probably a combination of a hotter guitar. I mean, I don't know if he was really by then, if that's the only amp he was using or not, probably. I mean, he said that that was the only amp he ever really, but then when you see his live rig, there's so many Marshalls. It's like, who knows. Um, I just think that the album has a lot of modulation, and when you pile that much H3000 on stuff, because there was a lot, or 949, whatever at the time, was being used. Things like a KT-77 versus an EL-34 to me sort of go out the window, and also maybe the possibility he was using like a JB or 59, but I think it was probably a JB. As well as the Steinberger, right? Makes appearance on Two Thongs, I think, on that record. That's a big difference. That's EMGs, Listen to the album and listen to the songs that use the EMGs, which are the Trans Trem Summer Nights, right? And I think there's one more. Can't remember right now, but listen to those songs and then listen to the other songs. I mean, you've got a composite body guitar with EMGs versus the poplar body 51. I mean, do you hear, like, you know what I mean? Like there's it's not really that different of a sound, and I think it's because of the harmonizer kind of masks differences more. That's just my opinion. Maybe you guys hear more differences than I do, but yeah. Open Lens says that he got a new Charvel Pro mod. That's cool. Those are fun. Love it. Love it. Love it. What else we got here? Let's see. Tone Talk is here. What's up, man? How you doing, Mark? Good to see you. We got Satriani on. Looking forward to Sats, says Ben Coombs. That's cool. That'll be good. Okay, what else we got? I think 70% of the tone is from the speakers and cabinet and 30% from the head, says Scully's Woodshed. I would say that I mean, maybe it's 50-50, but yeah, I get your point, and I agree that there's a ton of sound from the speakers. I've always said if you take a 212 with Celestion Blues and you were to plug anything into it, a Marshall head or a Fender Basement or something, it's like, wow, there sure is a lot of Vox AC30 character there. I mean, you still need the Vox to really sound. It's it's a very distinctive sounding amplifier, but just the point being, a big part of it is that filter that the speakers in the cabinet put on the sound is a huge component of the guitar tone. When I think of was it Mike Ness that plays doesn't he use a Basement and a Marshall cab at 4 ohms, right? And it's a great dirty rock and roll sound, that sort of sounds like a Marshall, really. So what we think of as a Marshall. Eric sent me a super chat. Thank you, man. Mr. Gunderson, I appreciate that. Is there any tonal issues with replacing a 16 ohm speaker with an 8 ohm of the same make and model? I don't really think so. Once again, there's so many factors. Like I don't remember. I mean, all the time I'm like switching between playing a 16 ohm cab, and then in this room I've got everything set at 8 running into my power station. And there's a few different reasons I do that, and I'll tell you why. I have heard that the higher you go with that impedance, like if you go to 16, 8 to 16 and then up to 32, like driving long speaker lines can be difficult when you get up to, or more difficult, so like if you're running, which I do, I run a really long speaker line, like it's like 85 feet long from my room here to where the cab is. It's common in big studios, obviously they have long speaker runs, as Lauren, because you're a studio guy. But I have heard that at the the higher impedance settings, it's longer. I should say, sorry, I'm not exactly accurate about that. My cab in the other room is a 16 ohm cab, and I'm running into the power station at 8. Okay, and that's in line as a load and reamp all the time to my cab in the other room. It's so transparent that I don't even think about it anymore. And I just use it in line as a way to reduce volume to the cabinet out in the other room and not kill it because I'm always cranking amps and stuff. So I run it at maybe half the volume, that it would if I was just nailing the. But I do have some amps that are, and I don't even know if I have them in here and I'm using them right now, but I have some that are only have an 8 ohm, 4 8 ohm tap. When I used to use my basement, it was a 4 ohm tap. So it was like, I didn't want to go into a 16 ohm cab. So I think that was my thinking. I was like, I'll just set everything at 8 here in the room. And then you can then set the output of the power station because it's then loading down, right? And then its power amp is driving it to 16. In theory, I have heard though that driving longer lines is better with, you know, the impedance being lower, 4 ohms, 8 ohms, something like that. So that's one thing. But so your question is more about like if just you've got maybe a 112 or something, right? You're going to run into it, and I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I don't really know. What do you guys think? Do you guys hear a difference? Running into an 8 ohm speaker or a 16 ohm speaker, all other things equal? I'd love to know if anybody thinks they hear anything that's meaningful or that if it matters. I mean, you know, I don't, I don't really, I don't really think so. Okay. Thoughts on the missing link audio eliminator pedals? Easy top in a box. Never tried it. So sorry. I wish I could help. My favorite, that's cool. I mean, Eliminator's got, it's have a special place in my heart always because that's about the time I was growing up listening to. It was really El Loco was the album. I was a little bit, you got into ZZ Top, the album right before Eliminator, and then Eliminator came out and I watched that. That was an amazing thing. I've talked about it before, but to see ZZ Top go from being this sort of wacky band from Texas, sort of, blues bass, blues rock band or whatever, and then they got really weird there's some amazing weird songs on El Loco that I love, you know. Cheap Sunglasses is weird. It's just weird. Woo, woo, all those sounds in the middle. I mean, it's so psychedelic and strange. I love that, the moving sidewalks, Billy Gibbons, influences like coming in there or something. Oh, it's just wacky, like a little bit left. It's not just straight, blues rock or whatever. And that's what made them so cool because they were kind of weird. But then Eliminator, it's a pop rock album that just sold millions of copies and blasted them off into another, it was like they reinvented themselves, and it was kind of amazing to see happen. How successful they were with that experiment and the videos and the cars and everything, and girls and that time, I guess it was just a perfect storm, like in the 80s of them. It's amazing, how did they think of doing that? It was really interesting. What's going on with the Soldano? Dave's doing a couple things to it. There's a couple little slight things, evidently, and I don't want to open up a can of worms here, but anybody that could read a schematic or whatever would probably be able to tell. But there's a couple little things that differ from the original, and I'm just having mine just done exactly like the original. It's literally just a few little parts or something, and I don't really hear a difference. Like I've played the new Soldano against an old one, and I could dial them to sound essentially exactly the same. Once again, like it's the splitting hairs of like, is it, you know what I mean? Is it? I mean, I've had big guitar player, like big name guitar players in this room. One recently that I mean, a legendary dude that like played through it and said like, "I wish my Soldano sounded like that." And I was like, "Really? It doesn't?" But it just sounds. The amp sounds great. It's a good sounding version of that amplifier, I think. So, but anyways, I'm just gonna have the couple little things done so that it's exactly like an old one. So that it'll be back in here soon. Does the Seymour Duncan SH5 custom sound like the first record? I mean, I personally am of the opinion that the first record is two different sounds, which is the probably the white and black striped guitar with, I think, who knows what the hell was in it, man, because I think it was 78 when Seymour actually rewound and the album was done late 77, right? So I don't know, but if you put a 9K, EVH 78 whatever style pickup in a white and black guitar, I think that's kind of the sound for that guitar, I think. And then the Super Distortion or Mighty Might, who knows if it was the hotter or the 9K or the 13K or whatever version of that pickup that Eddie used, but I think that's what was in the uh Destroyer. Because when we talk about Van Halen 1, we're talking about two guitars, not one. And like half the album is the Destroyer, and so well, now everything goes out the window because we've got a Gibson scale, shorter scale guitar with a two-pneumatic bridge, and probably that hot Mighty Might pickup, I think, in the bridge, or a distortion, DiMarzio. So which guitar are we talking about? The tremolo bridge ash guitar, or the glue-in neck, Sen ash guitar with the shorter scale. There's a lot of factors, So you always have to go song by song, I guess is my point. In other words, the Ain't Talking About Love guitar sound is not the You Really Got Me guitar sound. They're distinctly different. And I've got some of you in your head just listen, like ding 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 ding, and then that big fat full bass, wide range distortion sound of You Really Got Me. There's two different sounds there. So, I think, and then of course the JBLs, I think the other big component, but I digress. That, ripping top end that Randy got with the Altex, that's not dissimilar on that top end kind of distortion to what we hear on Van Halen 1, I think, out of the JBL and the aluminum dust cap and all that. Yeah. You should put Crazy Train in the Classic Rock Show set list. That's not a bad idea, but oh man, that song, does it have to be that one? Couldn't it be I Don't Know, or Flying High Again? Or, does it have to be Crazy Train? If I never heard that song again, it's not a bad song. It's a legendary song, but I don't ever need to hear it ever again. It's just so played on radio, It's like, and I know that's kind of, what Classic Rock Show does is we play generally speaking, the biggest hits of, the ones that were just epic. But it's a tough one. So, but yeah, it would totally be appropriate, I think. Any good rock bands coming through in LA these days? Rock bands. Let me think about a rock band that I've seen recently. Nothing's coming to mind as far as I've seen some great shows recently. I went to a club downtown the other day and I saw 3 really talented bands doing their thing, but it was more like it's more like modern pop stuff. And one girl that sang was it's like, oh my God. I audibly after one song, I was like, "You're so good." And the crowd kind of laughed because it was a quiet kind of, but she was so good. It's like she was, I don't know, maybe all of 22 years old or something. And just like I think she probably had done a lot of theater work and stuff, because she seemed like she was young, but she was like master kind of performer and really moving around the stage a lot, knew how to work a crowd. And it was like, you only get that from theater, I think, at that age. But man, could she sing, whoa. And so that was cool. And great guitar player. The guy was using a Helix, and a young guy. I'm looking at all these kids. Where all these kids come from? They're so good. They could play, and she could sing so good. And it was like, God, it makes me feel old. I was definitely the oldest guy there, I think. But it was a club downtown called Revolver or Revolution or something. It was kind of in the Fashion District, sort of adjacent to Little Tokyo. I'm not even getting the name of the place right. But anyways, it was cool to see some live music and go God, there's people out playing, and there's it's mostly kids there watching it, and they're having a good time. What's wrong with that? It's great. The last great kind of rock show I saw, and they're not even really what I would, they're just calling them a rock band would always be doing them a disservice, but it was well, okay, I saw another one this week that was great, but I'll talk about that in a second. Was the band July Talk from Canada. So July Talk I saw at the Echo a little while ago. They're on tour. They're Canadian, so it's not an LA band, but man, were they great! Great guitar player. I went with Friedman because the guitar player uses a Friedman amp, and but the singers, the male singer sounds kind of like Tom Waits and has this really cool thing. He's actually from Edmonton, from my hometown. And then there's a co-lead singer, female lead singer, and she was great. And their voices just blend perfectly. And they're like, it's just a great band. So I really enjoyed that. It's like an alternative rock band, I guess. But like I say, that's doing them a disservice because they have a pretty wide berth there as far as their writing and their sound. Great band. Really, really, really good. If you're into like, I don't know, you'd love it if you were into like Jeff Buckley and stuff, I guess. And this is cool. But I saw Jerry Cantrell this week too, and that was a really fun show. Ended up seeing a bunch of friends there, and it was great. It was in an old Belasco, I think is the theater. It was called downtown LA. Saw a few people there that said they watched the show, so maybe you guys are watching. I don't know, but this show, my Sunday show. But anyways, Jerry was great. Did a lot of Alice in Chains. It's almost like an Alice in Chains show, really. But I mean, he did a lot of other stuff too. But big band. I think there was like 7 people up there. Really cool. Sounded good. So that was fun. But any good rock bands like coming through? I think you mean like new bands. So yeah, that's what I saw this week. That's all I got. Do you have a new Signature Sir and a PT40 coming? I mean, the short answer is basically yes. But like I've talked about the guitar before, so that'll be official timeline announcement and all that stuff be coming soon. But you guys have seen it, the silver one that I love so much. And amps we're always working on. I'm actually going out to Sir on next week. I'll be out there midweek, and we're going to do some stuff with amps that we haven't really done for a little while. We're going to do some research, and that means me sitting down with John with an AB switcher and amps, and him getting in there and pulling parts in and out and coming down, and working it. And so that's fun. We just haven't had time. He's been really busy doing stuff, but he's got a little more time these days. As kind of coming out of the pandemic and stuff, and they've streamlined their workflow and stuff, and a lot of like kind of organizational stuff. He works on guitars a lot, so he's out on the floor doing frets and stuff all the time. But anyways, he's had a little bit more time recently, and so we've got some time to work on this stuff. So it's cool. There's a super chat there I got to grab. I'm going to do that in just a second here. Is it against YouTube rules to post a video of guitar parts of a Van Halen song, for example? Most people have taken and I mean like owners of copyrights, music publishing, and the bands and the folks that own the songs basically have taken the approach these days of, if you can't beat them, join them. And if you put out a video that's a cover or that is recognized by YouTube, by their algorithms as being a cover song using the melody of something or whatever, generally speaking, you'll get a message that say there's been a copyright claim on your video, but we're not penalizing you or removing your video. You will just share the ad revenue with the owner of the copyright. And that's generally what you get. So for example, this week when I put up the Randy video, I got one of those, because I'm using the original bass and drums and the vocal from, which is, by the way, you find those all over YouTube now. So, you can find like instrumental versions of I guess it's probably with the advent of Guitar Hero and things. And, people you're able to basically get the stems of the drums and the bass and the vocals all separate. And, that's what I use to play. I found it on YouTube and just, that's what I'm playing over. So it's all out there at this point, and they're just monetizing it. I mean, they're making money off the stream. It's just a stream. It's the song streaming on YouTube. They get paid for the ad revenue, and it's just a different way of kind of earning a little bit of scratch for songs, when these days everybody's just streaming anyway, and nobody's buying CDs. And so I guess they figured we better just go the way of that it's going. So I've got that super chat there. I'm gonna move all the way down to I've got a couple that I missed here, so sorry, I'm going to grab them. Any plans to tour in the UK again this year? I missed Classic Rock Show, unfortunately. Generally that happens in the UK in January, February, and they kind of stick to that schedule. So, although I can't promise, I would assume that that would be the next. That if you wanted to come see a classic rock show gig, it would be January, February of 2023. Thank you very much for the super chat, Fareed. I appreciate that. Uh, Rodney, also with the super chat. Thanks for always sharing interesting musical tidbits. Thanks, man. Regarding the power station, have you used the PS2? Yeah, I used to have a PS2. Did you change the factory settings for edge and deep for these long speaker cable runs? No, not for the cable runs. But as I remember on the original PS2, I liked the edge and deep settings, I think, all the way up in the all the way up position. And I think Stevie changed that on the PS100. That so the similar settings would be in the middle. So on the PS100, it's it always sounds like a little too much to me to have them all the way up like I used to run on the PS2. The PS2 sounded the most, and then Indeed like confirmed with I think it was with Friedman, so it's like secondhand, but he told me that that the switches in the middle in the PS100 are similar to the sound with the switches all the way up on the PS2. Just so, and you can use them whatever, however it sounds good, but I try and do it so that when I just use your ears, hit the bypass switch in and out on the unit, with the volume matched, so that the bypass tone is exactly at the same volume as you might have to play loud for a few minutes, but isolate a cab somewhere. Maybe listen to it through studio monitors or something with a mic on it, and then just flip that switch. Or yeah, I guess you could do it in the room too, and just flip the switch and listen to it's just so loud sometimes. I find sometimes that things are easier to hear what the hell's going on if it's not so loud. So, for me, a cabinet isolated with microphones on it, dialed in, maybe two mics that I like, and I can sit here at 90 dB with my monitors instead of 105 dB, or whatever. Not even 90, maybe 88 dB, and listen, flip that switch in and out as you're playing and dial in. And so I can say that with the presence and the depth all the way down and the two switches on the PS100 in the middle, that sounds really, really, really close to just not having anything in line at all. So Cooper says, why do you not play Stairway to Heaven in the classic rock show? Probably for the same reason that Crazy Train hasn't been done. I know it's like, the band plays Hotel California and stuff. It's like those songs are in there. Stairway to Heaven. Oh, it's an amazing song. Come on, but do we really need to cover, that particular? I mean, the last run we did Cashmere, which to me is it's also really long. I mean, Cashmere, God, it's long. It's like 7 minutes long or something. It feels like when you do it. If it's not, it feels like it. I think it actually is, but it's great and it's epic. And when a band, it's like I say, I mean, I guess you could do Crazy Train, but it's like, wouldn't you want to hear Flying High Again more? And if you're like there and Ozzy, you're like, oh yeah, like this one, Crazy Train. Be like, if you're a real Ozzy fan, it's almost like playing the songs for the folks that peripherally know the music. When you do the big one that's super overplayed, oh, this song, and meanwhile the real Led Zeppelin fans are going like, oh, I would so much have rather heard Cashmere than Stairway, because they've heard Stairway so many times, I mean, at least when the band did Comfortably Numb, it was the Pulse version. They tried to mix it up and do the slower, heavier Pulse version rather than just the album tempo. It was like, well, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Let's do the version from later on. That where they modified it a little bit or whatever. So it was the live Pulse version that we played. So. Oh boy. Anyways, Braxall says, is it all right to use the direct out of the power station to capture an amp on the quad cortex, or is the SUR the better option? They're both really good. In my mind, the SUR is the most accurate load box, I think, but the power station has an excellent reactive load in it as well that would work really well to do a capture. So you could use either, and you'd get a really close and good result. I think that's my opinion on that. Yeah. Uh, let's see. Alan says, has anyone asked Chris Holmes what he remembers about the Destroyer during that time? It was his guitar. No, not exactly. So Chris Holmes owned a Destroyer, and that's the guitar that Eddie borrowed to do Women and Children First, to do some songs on Women and Children First. Because by then he'd cut his up into the Shark guitar, So I mean, the Destroyer that became the Shark that you see on like the Van Halen 2 and I guess Women and Children First probably tours. And I guess Eddie had already did it. He did the Shark thing after they recorded the record, and I think you see it on the Van Halen 1 tour already cut up as well. So at some point, I think, right? Am I wrong about that? No, I'm pretty sure that you see it on the Van Halen 1, and he plays "You Really Got Me." So he'll do Eruption on the black and white guitar and then take it off, and then that was going through the Univox Echo and all that stuff in a slightly different chain. And then the wah, 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 wah is going at the end of Eruption, and you see him switch out for the Shark. And that's even in the, Van Halen 1 in the early days, still with the uncovered cabinets and all that. So he'd already cut it up then. But that guitar, there's photos of him playing it on the record in the studio. So it's late 77, right? And it's white. You can see it's this Destroyer when it was still white before he took the chainsaw to it or whatever he did, but he cut it up and then painted it and all that, and then he didn't like the sound as much anymore. He thinks taking out the wood that he took out of the back end, I think, kind of buggered up the guitar. So then he knew Chris Holmes had one as well, and he borrowed his to record Women and Children First, the third album. Don't know about songs on the second album if the Chris Holmes guitar was used for that. I always hear it in reference to Women and Children First. But Light Up the Sky, I think most definitely is the Destroyer. Chris's, the Shark, one of the two. We don't know, and that's a great sound, Light Up the Sky. Light Up the Sky uses tremolo bar on the solo, but you can hear it's an overdub. There's no whammy bar on the whole song all the way through on the rhythm guitar part. And that's what he used to do with the Destroyer, when you don't hear any whammy. So anyways, interesting stuff. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. Yeah, this is a good point from Eric here. He says isolated tracks on YouTube from Van Halen are so cool. They really are. Like, check out Beautiful Girls and then practice it. It's so cool. Where you can just hear the, his swing and all that stuff. Just put that on and play along to it, and also just listen to it and marvel at the great rhythm guitar playing. So, and the solos. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Interrupters. That's a good band. Robert says, shout out to the Interrupters from LA, my favorite contemporary band. That intro with the drums on Over the Mountain always grabs me right away. I know, it's so cool. Come on now. That's good shit. Okay, Corey says, I've been practicing to Van Halen Finish What You Hear. Let me highlight this. Sorry, I'd like to highlight the super chats. As you know, I do. I've been practicing to Van Halen Finish What You Started, and to me it has a country telly type sound. Yes. Do you think he uses telly on that song? I think he uses Strat. He's playing an old Strat in the video. If you go watch the video, I'm sure it's on YouTube. He had some old Strats. It's like a 57 or something. So I think it's a Strat in number 2 position, but it's DI, I do believe. That's how they did Finish What You Started. DI into the board, probably through like a 1176 or something with a bunch of compression. It's clean as a whistle. So I'm pretty sure he played a Strat on it. That's my memory. Tell me if I'm wrong, but my memory is in the video he's playing a Sunburst 50 Strat. One of the only, it's kind of cool. We've never seen him do that, right? That's neat. Do you mostly use the internal cabs with the quad Cortex, or do you use your IRs? I mostly use the internal cabs, and there's just a couple that I really like. One of them being, if you guys have a quad Cortex, the 90s greenback 412. It's called like 412 90s GB or something. That sounds great to me. So I really like that one for greenback, and I'm a greenback guy, so that's 90% of my needs right there. If I want an open back sound, there's one of the twin, I think a 212, maybe it's the vintage twin C12 and something. The speakers, I don't know. That sounds good to me. Also the 69 212 Celestion thing. I think it's like a Marshall cabinet of some sort. That sounds really cool. If you want like a leaner bass sort of Celestion sound, I think it's supposed to be an open back 212 or something with Celestions, or maybe it's closed back. I don't know, Marshall 212, whatever. And then there's a 65, I think, 212 Fox style cabinet in the Quad Cortex that I really like as well. Well, between those, that's it. That's all I need, really. And, occasionally V30 for something. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any tips on keeping strings okay when storing guitars for a period of time besides using coated strings? I don't really think about it. I just, if you don't play the guitars, the strings, generally speaking, unless you got a high humidity or something, they get rusty or something. I find they last a minute. I just leave them on the guitars. I pick it up a year later and I played this for a while. I tune it up and I play it. Coated will definitely last the longest, but I'm not really a fan. Yeah. What else have we got here? Pete, you are the EVH authority. I was more into George Lynch and D. Martini then. Yeah, I love both those guys. I mean, they both are tone monsters and ferocious guitar players, and both become pals, actually. Both great guys. George is hilarious. And Warren's an insightful, really sweet dude. So, just a really good person. Do you still own an Acoustasonic? I have two, the Strat and the Jazzmaster. And we'll be playing one of them at least, I think, next Friday at this gig I'm doing at the, where am I playing? At the Federal in North Hollywood, if anybody would like to go. Let's see. There are so many songs I would never want to hear again. Yeah, there's a whole bunch that I don't need to hear either. It's just like, I love hearing new songs that, are amazing. Let's see. What pickup height do you set for Thornbuckers? I do the standard kind of like pretty high on the bridge and then lower on the neck humbucker, with the bass side always angled back a little bit. And on both of them, that's how I roll. But I just balance them by ear using a clean sound. And I'll find I'll generally always have the neck humbuckers almost backed right down to the top of the pickup ring, essentially, or maybe just a little higher. And then the bridge humbuckers up. Not, touching the strings, but it's up there. You always got to check when you fret at the 22nd fret on the certainly on the high E string, because I've always got the treble side a little bit higher, that it's not hitting the pole piece or something. But I used to run them up like as high as I possibly could. I don't really do that anymore. But it's still up there. It's medium high, I would say, on the bridge side for me always, and then on the low side on the bass side, and that seems to give me the best balance. Yeah. This guy. You answered partially my question about tone shaving on psychedelics, but you did have a smirk. Well, now I'm laughing full on. Can we hear one story about a time you got loose? I don't really have any stories about that but just probably shouldn't get into that on this show. Oh, brother. I'm going to stay out of that one. At least for now. Ask me again next week. Maybe I'll loosen up about it. Let's see. Don't mention Stairway or your video will be taken down. That's interesting. So Stairway to Heaven videos don't last up on YouTube? I didn't know that. Certain songs probably, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know the Eagles are really hardcore. They take everything down, but there's a lot of stuff where they don't these days. Any plans to play a Dr. ZZ rec? I would love to try one. I would love to, actually. But I haven't. And yeah, it'd be cool to try one after playing that fellow's train wreck I had here like a year and a half ago or a year ago or whatever. That thing was amazing. So amp haunts me a little bit. Sounded so good. This comment right here about the Variac and setting the bias. Yes, that's exactly right. Basically, what they used to do is Variac down to like a low voltage, like 89 or 90 volts or whatever, and then crank the bias just like all the way up. Well, nowadays, that's not really what we do. That's what Eddie supposedly did. But once Jose supposedly started matching tubes for Eddie, and then they started biasing the amps, and miraculously, all the tube blowing problems went away. You know how you heard the stories about back in the day, like, oh, it used to blow transformers or amps would blow up all the time, and well, tubes, and they weren't really, they were just throwing in sets of tubes back then, not really biasing properly, and so from the horse's mouth, Rudy Liren, I believe that they used to like that. He told Friedman that once Jose started matching sets of tubes for them and that would bias, then those problems stopped. So, but yeah, you want to bias the amp because of course you're dropping the voltage and that's changing the bias. So what you want to do is drop the voltage to where you're going to use it and then bias the amp up to the correct, bias for that particular voltage. That's absolutely 100% true. Now in the Sir SL68 amplifier, that's why there's a couple bias pots and there's, two voltage settings, 120 and 90, and you can bias the amp internally so that when you flip the switch, it's rebiasing automatically. It's brilliant. Works great, like a charm. So if you go DI to the house, what's the best way to get feedback? Great question. You still need a cab on stage really to do it. You can kind of get it if you have a wedge and the guitar is loud and the wedge coming up at you, but I don't like that really. So I still like to have a cabinet on stage just at a reasonable volume so that I can get some feedback. Anybody that saw me at Classic Rock Show, I've got a little, well, I have 412 on this last tour, but I'll go over there and stick the headstock right into the cabinet, shake the guitar and feeds back and sounds amazing, So there's no substitute for that. It's rock and roll. We got to do it. Barring all that, I've got a freak out from Digitech on my board. FREQOUT, freak out pedal. Find one of those because that's your only, the lifesaver if you want to be able to get feedback. Yeah. It works quite well, for simulating feedback. If you're on in-ears or something, you want to grab a note, have it, tail out. Do you know any of the guys at Cheap Trick? I've met Rick multiple times. I think I told my Rick stories on here before about him, pegging me in the head with picks and calling me sausage and pierogi man. And I wrote a song with him once. That was really fun. He's cool. But anyway, his son Dax, I know quite well. He's the drummer now, so we talk fairly often and stuff. He's really cool, super cool. Never met any of the other guys. For what reasons do folks use a wound third string? It used to be common, just the gauges used to be heavier and stuff, and wound third. But once you get if a string gets any thinner than say a 15 or a 14 from a it just doesn't really sorry, what I'm trying to say is maybe it's going thicker. A plain string gauges used to be heavier, so when you had strings being like say 12 to 56 was the standard gauge back in the 50s or something, like light strings didn't exist until the late 60s when the slinkies came out. I think Ernie Ball, they pioneered the slinky thing and came out with them in the late 60s. 8 gauge, 9 gauge strings, all of a sudden it was like a revelation, right? Different thing. But before that, you had the heavier strings, and a plain string really didn't work, I don't think, like above say a 22, something like that. And so they would wind them, and I don't know why that is, like the physics of why like why can't you have I don't know, but I don't think you can have like a 38 gauge plain string. So it just doesn't work for some reason. So maybe it's just like too much metal or something in the string. Once they get to a certain point, it would be like impossible or way too expensive or just not feasible. I don't know, be like a weird, like a cable, I guess. But somebody that's into strings could tell us. Somebody that makes strings, somebody that works for Didario or Ernie Ball, they'd be able to tell us why that is. So guys, it's 12:26. I'm going to go till about 12 39, and then I'm going to be out of here because I'm going to go see Paul McCartney tonight for those just joining up in Oakland. So I got a jet because I've got a plane to catch. So another 15 minutes or so. It's kind of a shorter show today, but hey, we're having fun. Let's make the most of it. I think I already highlighted that one comment. There's another super chat here. Thank you, Corey, for that one. And then this one was wondering, you have so many great amps here. Never seen you trying an EVH one. So if you watch old videos of me from 2007 and 8, I was using an EVH amp on tour, actually. I had an EVH, one of the first edition 100-watt 5150s, and I used it for the whole, well, not the whole, I guess the second half of our touring in 2007 and early 2008 through mid 2008. I was using that 5150 as my main kind of distortion sound. So any of the videos you see me with Chris Cornell from Argentina, for example, or Mexico City, there's a really cool show that was well recorded and really well mixed, and we were kind of firing on all cylinders and playing well, and Chris sang great that day. And this, if you ever want to see a good version of that band, just YouTube search, Chris Cornell Mexico TV 2007, and you'll find this show. On that, I'm playing EVH, and it sounds really good. I heard it. Somebody uploaded it the other day, and it's the highest quality video that I've seen. So a recent upload, and it's the whole program, and it's about 5 or 6 songs. And we do Like a Stone, A Burden in My Hand, and Say Hello to Heaven, and maybe Spoon Man. I can't remember. Maybe Cochise. I can't remember. Oh yeah, we do Cochise. And you can really hear the amp on there, and it sounds great. It was well recorded, and I'm really happy with my playing on that show and the tones and the whole 9 yards. It was cool. So if you want to hear me using an EVH, there you go. That's probably the show to see it on. Yeah. Have you ever met Steve Vai's corgis? No. What's your favorite dog breed? Bulldogs, English Bulldogs. Is using a Variac that dangerous? It's not dangerous at all. It's not dangerous at all. Just dial it down to 90 and check it with a voltage meter if you want, because sometimes the dial isn't exactly accurate, or get a Variac that has a voltage readout on it. And then, if you know how to bias, only don't try this at home, kids, unless you know what you're doing, but get in there and bias it up at 90, to whatever, 32 milliamps or whatever. You'd have to, I don't really understand that stuff because I don't do my own bias. You're beyond me if you do that, but I give it to the guys I know that know how to do that stuff. But yeah. This fella says, appreciate you not talking about drugs. A lot of us don't use drugs of any type except coffee. Yeah, there's a whole, geez, man, there's more sober musicians out there these days than folks. It's interesting. There's a thing with, I see it with a lot of kids these days. Maybe it's just me, but it's like partying is like not as cool as it maybe was once made out to be, or whatever. I don't know. And I guess that's a positive thing. People make their own choices, and I just certainly enjoy margarita and cider and stuff like that, and whatever else, things that people do. But yeah, I don't really like, it's a personal choice, a personal decision. And I do notice, it's just an observation I've made, that younger folks these days, they don't hit it as hard as probably we did when we were kids, or whatever, or even young adults, or it's like it's a little passé or something. But maybe I'm, obviously that's a generalization, but in general, I would say it's not as much of a thing as it maybe used to be. I know a lot of kids or younger people that are like, yeah, I'm not really into that. I never have been. So I guess it doesn't really do you any favors, does it? So that's a broad. It doesn't really do you any favors. Take that for what you will, but you know what I mean. It's no judgment or whatever, and but yeah. Have you? What's this question? What are your thoughts on good mic pre for recording in cab versus going into the mic pre on the interface and emulating them with plugins? Well, the plugins are so good these days. Recently, like Greg Wells, a great mixer, engineer, great ears, the whole 9 yards. He's recently said, I'm not missing anything using the UA pre's and the virtual, in unison in console 1073s and APIs and whatever else he uses in there. So in other words, he's really enjoying it and feels like he doesn't even really need his hardware pre's anymore. That's what he said. And he's been experimenting, doing whole projects with just kind of in the box, I guess, using the interface, using the mic pre's on the UA and liking what he's hearing. I think it sounds great too. I still use my APIs here. They're right here. I know they sound great. I know I can rely on them, but I guess I could do a back and forth one of these days. I probably should. I should do a real close listening test between my API, my two, 312 style pre's that I use here, and then the virtual version in the in UA. Maybe make a good video, I guess. See what we hear. Speaking about Aussie guitarists, why is nobody even talking about Joe Holmes? Has played with Ozzy for years and also with David Lee Roth. I mean, not for a really long time, right? But he did for a time, yeah. Probably what it is, man, is it's just the recorded thing. That when we think of Ozzy, we think of the songs like "Bark at the Moon." Jake did it on the record, right? We think of obviously Randy with Mr. Crowley and Crazy Train and Flying High Again. I mean, he was, he did that. Somebody said the other day they were kind of bagging on Randy in the comments on the video that I did, and I was like, he established Ozzy's solo career with his sound. He was able to write. He was a major part of the writing. Ozzy had just come out of Sabbath, probably a little bit of a, he was a little crazy back then. Probably, Randy's focus and discipline to be the guitar player that he was, and also obviously, he was 22, 23. He was kind of on fire. He could obviously write. And those solos and the whole, I mean, he had a major impact on Ozzy having a successful solo career, and Ozzy's obviously become a total legend. He's much more, when we think, let's take a singer like not taking anything away from Ian Gillan or something, right? He's amazing. He's a legend in his own right, but he's a legend for having sung in Deep Purple, right? Doesn't have a legendary solo career, really. He's the singer of Deep Purple. Ozzy would be similar. We would talk about him the same way if he was the singer in Sabbath. Be like, oh yeah, Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath. Ian Gillan from, Deep Purple, right? I mean, Ian did a record with Sabbath, but that's it's one that people almost forget. It's still cool, but you know what I'm saying. My point just being like, Ozzy became Ozzy. It's not like we go Ian and everybody's like, oh, we're talking about Ian Gillan, Ozzy. He's like, he was a legend and a big part of establishing that and setting him on the road to be there. I mean, had he only done the 2 albums with Randy and then maybe gone back to Sabbath, we would still be like Ozzy, like think of him in that different light, like his own identity. And Randy helped him do that. Randy was a major part of that, major catalyst, major reason why, so Joe, amazing guitar player. I totally agree with you. And that band Pharmaca was really cool, right? And playing with Roth, great guitar player. But he wasn't a part of that, establishing that with Ozzy, because he didn't record the tracks that you know what I mean? So I think that's it. It's part of the same reason why people don't really talk about me in the same. I mean, okay, I recorded with Chris Cornell. I'm on one record on a couple songs, but people don't think of me like even like Alan Johannes, who's like a big part of the Euphoria Morning album, right? Alan is like he was, you know what I mean? Like when you record and you write together, and then you put you make a sound, like Alan, really big part, right, of the sound with Chris and Natasha, right, of the Euphoria Morning album. He helped Chris establish his solo career in a way that was a major, and that's why people think about Alan and people think about Chris as a solo artist as well as the singer from Soundgarden, Audioslave, and big part of it was that first record establishing that sound with Alan. Huge part of that. So we got to give him credit, right? And I'll take the, like people don't think of me the same way that they, because Alan, he was there at the right time, and he's had this unbelievable guitar player, writer, and he had the skills and the whatever, and it was that perfect storm of him helping Chris establish that and go on his way, right? So you know what I mean? So we got to give these guys credit, Randy, Alan, you know what I mean, for helping. That it's just part of how it is, so anyways, that's something that I'll always regret. I mean, that, you know, I never had the chance or just didn't. I should have, you know, probably if we talk about me lamenting things for a little bit, you know, because Chris brought up a couple times, go, well, if you and I wrote a song together, kind of in, you know, then, and I would kind of almost be shy about that. Like, oh, he's not really, you know, is he? I should have been more like, dude, let's do that. Because at this point in my life, I would do that. You know, like, can we do that? Can we just do that? Like, can we make that happen? You know, but I never really did that. So I played guitar a little bit on the Scream album, on a couple songs, but I didn't have anything to do with the writing of them and stuff. Well, I can write, you know, I love writing. You guys know that. So it's like I should have been more, you know. But anyways, whatever, you know, we can't go back, can we? So we got to move forward. So thanks for today and videos this week. And where are you playing again Friday, this coming or following? Thanks, Peter Evans, for the super chat. So this week I'm doing a gig at the Federal next Friday with my friends Paulie Z, Toshi Yanagi from the Jimmy Kimmel Band is the other guitar player, and we're going to play a whole bunch of Chris Cornell music, and it's going to be really fun. Maybe I'll put up a video on Instagram or something, because we in rehearsal the other day we were doing some cool stuff, and it was like sounding really cool. So it was, you know, I had mixed feelings about it, to be honest, because I haven't played that music, and it's kind of hard for me to listen to, but playing it, it's kind of healing. I don't know, you know. It was nice to play the other day, and I did end up enjoying it once we got in rehearsal and jamming. The band's great, drummer's great, bass player's great, and everybody's great. So, okay, so that's Friday night, the Federal in North Hollywood. If you're interested, you can, you know, look up the website for the Federal, I would think, and I'll put up some more info about it. I've got a flyer for it and put it up on my social medias this week. I've got to go, you guys, and I do have to kind of stick to it because I got a plane to catch. So 2 minutes, I'm going to split. But Chris Quinn has a super chat. Can you talk about when tons of distortion? I find it can be hard to manage, but sometimes my tracks record too clean. That's interesting. I don't really understand, but I would say what you want to do is push the distortion to the point where it feels like really great and it's easy to play, and then just back it off a hair from there. That's always just back it down a hair, because you're always going to get a little more clarity then. And then just fight a little bit harder to get the tracks clean and stuff. And that's kind of the way you know, to go. But Paul Daskell says, "Burden in My Hand never sounds as good as the recorded version." Check out the version we did in Mexico. I'm really proud of it. That's all I'll say. And I'm using my divided by 13 RSA 31, so kind of a Voxy amp on it, and I'm playing my Les Paul with Antiquities in the right tuning and everything. And we got a great flow on it, and it's got a great. Just check it out. Listen to the version that we did. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But listen to our version that we did, and I think we played the shit out of it, to be honest, I have to say. I really do. Because you know what the thing was about that? We'd just done like probably 150 shows, like, and we've been on tour for 7 months, you know, just playing constantly. That's my alarm. Means I got to split. I gotta get out of here, you guys. So I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna. I otherwise I'll sit here and then I'll be late for my plane and stuff, and I don't want to miss going to see Paul McCartney tonight up in Oakland. So I'm looking forward to it. And next week I'll be here. I'll make up for it next week. I'll do a longer show next week. But anyways, got videos coming this week as well on the Sheriff from Victory. It's sitting right here on my desk. It's a kind of a pedal style amp and preamp, and with the 2 notes integration and stuff like that, and cab sims. I've got a video coming for an acoustic guitar. I got to do a review it for Guitar World. That's the other thing I got to do this week. So we'll probably see those 2 videos this week. The Sheriff's kind of a plexi affair. So, all right, you guys, thanks so much for being here. Check out Ben's show tonight, his Mother's Day special, Ben Coombs. And happy Mother's Day. I didn't even wish everybody happy Mother's Day. To all you mothers out there, the 1% of females that watch this, right? And all you guys, call your moms if you haven't. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody take care. Over and out.